Every single one of us who are helping others, we have intellectual property, and we mightn't have called it that. We mightn't have given it fancy labels and fancy names just yet, but every single one of us have a way that we get our people from A to B with our methodology, our process, our framework. And essentially that is your intellectual property, even if you haven't codified it yet and put it into like fancy diagrams and all of those things. And what a lot of health coaches don't yet understand is that that intellectual property and that methodology is actually their greatest vehicle for turning every single set of eyeballs that sees their stuff into a qualified lead. And how we do that is what's kind of commonly known, or the buzzword in the industry, is with a quiz funnel. But over the last number of years, we've been starting to move into a much more sophisticated type of lead qualifying machine. And essentially what we do is we score people against each of the areas of your framework, your methodology.
Welcome to another episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. I'm your host, Omar Cumberbatch of OmarCumberbatch.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. We have an awesome guest today. Her name is Maeve Ferguson, and she really breaks down some interesting concepts that I know that you will absolutely love about marketing. And what I found was super interesting is this concept of surveys. And I think all health coaches at some point signed up for a survey that was kind of a lead magnet for whoever you were subscribing to or trying to take that survey for. And basically, she just breaks it down, like the mechanics of it, a lot of the background details that we probably had no idea was going on in the background, which I found was really, really interesting and something that a health coach can utilize as a lead magnet and a way to get, kind of figured out if these people who we are actually signing up could be potential clients. So I think this is a really interesting angle, and I was really excited to share this with you. As always, please leave a rating and review on iTunes. It goes a long way so I can continuously get amazing guests like Maeve and just continue to move this forward so health coaches could build in their businesses and make some money. All right, let's jump into the show. Hey, Maeve, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I am good, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to jumping in and having this chat.
Oh, no, I'm excited. And one of the good things about, talking off air and getting to know you a little bit and then doing my usual stalking, you have an amazing quality that automatically gets higher ratings for me is the fact that you have an accent.
Yes, my Irish accent, it is... It's pretty strong, but I will promise I will talk as slowly as possible.
No, just rock out. We love it. I always joke like the Australia, the British, obviously the Irish have such great accents, and for whatever reason, it's like music to Americans' ears.
Yeah, it's
we love it. So it makes you sound.
There we go. We're winning already. It's all good.
Well, you have a great origin story, so I want to get that out the way so that people can get to know you a little better. And then we have to dive into a topic that I haven't touched in over 200 episodes. I think is fascinating. I've always seen it, these quizzes that are out there. Never really knew it was so sophisticated, the intention behind it, and you're an expert in that. So I want to dive into that. I know I have a limited amount of time with you. Maybe we'll do a part 2 at some point, but I want you to jump into your origin story.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, how did I end up here and doing what we do? My entire background was in financial services. I was an accountant of all things in a past life. Did the whole, Ernst & Young, Big Four consulting career, and then spent many, many years in private equity. And once very, very long story cut short, I caught a virus and I spent 4 years in bed. Incredibly sick in my early 30s. And then when I recovered from that, I did try to go back to corporate, but like anybody who's had something significant happen to them, you just kind of change so irreversibly that I knew that I was going to live a different type of life. So I left my high flying career, jumped in the deep end into this online world and have kind of bootstrapped my business the whole way up. And now we're serving and working with some of the biggest thought leaders in the space. So really, really enjoy that. essentially helping them turn their intellectual property, their methodologies into scalable infrastructure that brings in really high-end clients on repeat.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's something that I know us as health coaches just dream about. So those are really important things. And then, we spoke off here that I was intending on to go the intellectual property route. And then you just demonstrated that we could talk about the intellectual property route that leads to these awesome quizzes that you provide. So can you give us that little bridge and seeing, as health coaches, we try to create as much as we can and how we can bridge that gap?
Yes, absolutely. So every single one of us who are helping others, we have intellectual property, and we mightn't have called it that. We mightn't have given it fancy labels and fancy names just yet, but every single one of us have a way that we get our people from A to B with our methodology, our process, our framework. And essentially that is your intellectual property, even if you haven't codified it yet and put it into like fancy diagrams and all of those things. And what a lot of health coaches don't yet understand is that that intellectual property and that methodology is actually their greatest vehicle for turning every single set of eyeballs that sees their stuff into a qualified lead. And how we do that is what's kind of commonly known, or the buzzword in the industry, is with a quiz funnel. But over the last number of years, we've been starting to move into a much more sophisticated type of lead qualifying machine. And essentially what we do is we score people against each of the areas of your framework, your methodology. So let's pretend, you're a health coach, you're in that space. I'm big down this rabbit hole at the minute, so I can kind of speak to my own experience. Let's pretend we have something in relation to nutrition, something to do with mindset, something to do with strength training, something to do with cardio as part of our methodology. Okay. You would then essentially ask your leads, so people who go through your diagnostic, you can ask them questions around each of these areas to paint a really, really clear picture of where they are, what's going really well for them, what they're struggling a little bit with, and then from off the back of that, show them a completely personalized roadmap that focuses in and helps them with the thing that they are struggling with the most. Okay, so let's take me as an example. I do strength training like 5 days a week, so I think my strength is pretty good. I work every single day with an energetics advisor, so my mindset is pretty strong. But to be totally honest, my nutrition is wanting a little bit. So I'm not eating enough protein. I am overdoing it on the carbs. So I would get probably a low nutrition score, probably a very high strength score, probably medium to low on the cardio score, etc. Okay, so it really gives you as a business owner a really clear picture of every single lead and where they are in their journey, and therefore how you can most appropriately help them. And that is really good for a couple of reasons. First of all, whenever you're having a sales conversation, we are able to leave behind this chapter of business where people are having these absolutely awful discovery calls, where they spend an hour of their life chatting and chatting and chatting and getting somebody's entire life history. They're then finding out that they don't have any money to invest in themselves, or that this is not a right now thing. And we've just wasted 60 minutes of our life, and then they don't actually invest in our coaching. Okay, so what the diagnostic actually does is it finds out all of that information inside of the quiz, inside of the diagnostic, so that then you can reroute people to only actually send the calendar link or send your application to people who are a really good fit, who are ready to go now, and who have a gap in their score that you can help them with. Okay, so that is kind of one piece. That's what I would call the qualitative piece. But as we all know, not all leads are created equal. And we might have, say, for example, if we have 1,000 people go through our diagnostic in a week or in a month, there's going to be people in there who can jump into our multi-six-figure offer. There's going to be people who are 20K people or 10K people, right down through to the people who, literally don't have $500 to invest in themselves. Mm-hmm. And what we really want to do, and what the diagnostic does, is it actually strips apart and segments all of those leads based on how much they are going to be able to invest in themselves. So let's pretend you've got a 10K program, you'll want to only be getting onto conversations to people who have indicated that they have that amount to invest. And then on that sales conversation, you know exactly what they're struggling with. You can position your offer as a solution to those struggles because you have it there in front of you because they've been through your diagnostic. And the investment isn't really ever a conversation. Say, for example, in our business, the investment is never a conversation because we know what level of a person they are before we even hop onto a call with them. And people who are unqualified, we're able to say, no problem, like, here's our YouTube channel. Have fun, go watch that. But we're not, our sales team aren't sitting there having conversations with people who are simply not ready to work at our level.
So I guess I have two questions as far as that goes. So the diagnostic, like you said, for someone like you on our sales call, we would focus on the nutrition element to kind of just show how I can help you.
Mm-hmm.
On the quiz, there is something that talks about how much you would be willing to invest in the program.
Yes, exactly. So that would come in the question side of things. So that sort of question, what we would call the wealth qualifiers, don't feed through to their results page. So they're going to land on a results page. It's going to be completely personalized. It feels like you literally can see into their soul because you truly understand them at a very deep level, what is going on for them, what they're struggling with. On the back end, you have the data to know, we call it our hot leads alert system, where whenever a lead goes through our diagnostic and they, tag themselves that they're willing to invest more than $50,000, that then sends a Slack notification to our sales team immediately to say new platinum lead has come into the business. So we're able to focus on these really, really high-end people. And then so if you think about your programs and your offer suite, you might have a $100,000 offer, a $20,000 offer, and maybe even like a 2K digital course type thing. But you can then put the right offer and the right message in front of the right person at the right time. And the beauty of the quiz is that it is completely personalized. The copy that you would see is completely different to what the next person sees because it is based on your personal results. And this is why it is so sophisticated in comparison to those awful like PDF lead magnets that nobody ever opens, never mind reads, never mind takes the call to action.
Interesting. That's really cool. And again, I've walked through these sequences before, not knowing what was.
Yeah, what's going on in the infrastructure in the back end? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So I guess I got to talk about that again. How hard is it to do something like that as a health coach who's just starting out? They might not have a lot of money as far as to invest in maybe a service that curates this kind of material for them. Do you recommend that they do this on their own? Is there some other, like, how long does these surveys have to be? Just a little bit of
absolutely. Yeah. So I think there's two answers to this question. So if I had $1 for every single time that somebody said to me, it's like, oh yeah, I tried a quiz and it didn't work. And then you're like, cool, can I see it? And it's some form of type form. Like that is not a diagnostic. Okay. So to answer your question easily, anybody can whack up a quiz tomorrow. It doesn't mean it's actually going to convert. So there's many kind of parts of this process that we want to make sure are done properly. And we, first of all, to kind of answer your question, we want to begin with the end in mind. So we want to think about our offers and, where are we sending people? So that's the first thing we want to do. Then we got to make sure that there's congruence between the questions that we're going to ask inside this assessment and the offers we're going to make. So we don't want to have questions that are all about gardening and then they get to the offer and it's like, here's my synchronized swimming program. Okay, there's like no congruence there at all. Yeah. We got to make sure that the score and the result that they get, whenever you then position your offer as it relates to their specific scores and the things that they most need help with, it is the only and logical next step. And because the offer that you're making to them matches the investment that they've already told you they are able to make, it just becomes that no-brainer decision because it solves the problem that they've just identified and it matches exactly what they can invest, and then they're able to jump into that. So that is like reverse engineer out of your offers. Then what you want to do is create what we call we call this IP mapping. So we're taking all of your intellectual property and what are those 3 or 4 big areas that you help people with. Okay, so we call those your category scores. So let's pretend it's mindset, nutrition, strength, and cardio. I'm just making this up. Okay, so we have those scores. You wordsmith it, give them pretty names. Then we want to say, like, right, within the realms of nutrition, what are the subcategories that we would, whenever we think about somebody that has a good nutrition profile, what are the things that are going on in there? What are the topics? So we maybe have protein intake, we have hydration, etc. Okay, so you would then have subcategories that there's 2 or 3 of those that under the nutrition umbrella, they would get a score on each of those. Okay, and then from there, so you do that across all of your categories, you break it down into subcategories, and then from there, we want to craft our questions. So from there, when it comes to, let's say, hydration, what are the 2 to 3 things that when people answer these questions in a certain way, it is going to show us that they're actually doing really well, kind of moderate, or really poorly in this specific area. And then again, we just do that exercise, subcategory by subcategory by subcategory. And then all of this rolls up into giving them their scores across all of those areas, all of those category scores, and then their overall wellness profile, for example. Okay, then this is where, so that's kind of what I would call the diagnostic build. But then we want to make sure that the copy that people see is tweaked for the results that they get. So somebody that got a high score in nutrition shouldn't see anything about, your nutrition score is low, and vice versa. Okay, so the copy is also personalized based on their specific results. And essentially, to like kind of the Cliff Notes version, it's like, here's your score, here's what it means, here's what's going to happen if we don't do anything about it, here's what you can do about it, call to action. And then that call to action is bringing them in to our offer that matches exactly what they have to invest. And then, so we just work through that kind of section by section, result by result, and it is completely personalized. So you're going through this and it's like, hey, Omar, it's actually speaking to you. It's using your personalized results. And what I find is that it collapses that know, like, and trust timeline that's, how many touch points does it now take nowadays to actually build that rapport and that connection with people? When people feel seen, heard, and understood inside of essentially a lead magnet, it is so profoundly different from the noise and the mayhem and the AI generated garbage that is getting like fired out there. It's this individualization, it's this personalization that really, really allows us to collapse that know, like, and trust time.
Yeah, no, I love it. And that's one of the questions that I had. I was just curious because there's an element of automation. So when I hear automation, I hear computers, then I was like, okay, AI, what are we talking about with AI? Are these things, are they AI driven, or like, are you having people who are actually looking through it, or a combination of both?
Yeah, brilliant question. So we build a lot of agentic AI solutions for our clients. So the way I always liken this is the diagnostic assessment is the foundation of your business. Okay, so there is no point in bolting on AI, agentic AI bells and whistles if we don't have basic lead qualification, lead segmentation in place inside of our companies. Okay, and so we have some really cool agents that we're rolling out for clients that are identifying the high ticket buyers hiding on our email lists, that are letting us know where we're losing the sale in a sales conversation. So it's listening to the transcript. It's like, here's what you did well. Here's what you need to do improve on next time. Here's, basically, here's what you've done really well. Here's what to improve on. And it's feeding it back to the sales team. It feeds it back to me or the CEOs of the companies. So then that sales team is continually optimizing over time. Mm-hmm. One of my absolute favorite agents is where we are actually reviewing the data. So I'm a big data junkie because data equals power, data equals insights, and it allows us to make accurate decisions in our businesses instead of this nonsense of like, oh, I feel this or I feel that. The numbers never lie. Data never lies. So we let the data drive where our business is going. And what these AI agents are able to do is analyze patterns of behavior where, for example, let's say we're running a Facebook ad with this kind of tone of copy. It's then bringing in all of these leads that are getting hyper segmented, not only from a struggle and desire perspective, but also from an ability to invest in themselves perspective as well. And over time, these agents just get smarter and smarter, and it starts to see, well, this copy is bringing in these types of leads, and these types of leads are buying our $185,000 thing. But these leads over here, they're only able to invest $2,000 and buy a self-study product and everything in between. And then what that does from a marketing team perspective is we're able to have this agent analyze all of that data at scale and then feed back to the marketing department. If you want more of these multi-six-figure clients, you got to speak about this angle and less of this angle. And then over time, the water that is running through the pipes, so the leads that are coming into the business, the more that top of funnel copy is positioned for a rich niche for people who can afford to invest in themselves at a high level, we're going to be running clear water through the pipes instead of running dirty water through the pipes. And the whole idea here is that these AI agents are working for us like a little army every single day, identifying these high ticket buyers, telling us where our funnels are falling over. And yes, these are all kind of fancy bells and whistles that can be implemented in due course. But the really important thing is we've got to have the foundations in place in our businesses first. So leads offer sales, leads offer sales, leads offer sales before we start worrying about any of those fancy things. We don't want to put the cart before the horse.
No, that makes sense. It's a fascinating way to look at it. I mean, you describe it magnificently. I completely get it. I'm very excited to learn more about it. I'm definitely going to look more on your content. And like, I guess my initial question is some of these things, as far as these quizzes, are they very long? Are they short? I'm just curious about that because I'm just thinking about people's attention spans generally.
Yes, lovely. So that's a great question, and it's actually a question I get quite often. And essentially, there are three different types. Okay, so at one end of the extreme, we have what we call a quiz funnel, and that is the 7 to 10 questions, super fun, super easy, bring in leads at scale. So one of our clients, for example, is running like it's running $900,000 a month in Facebook ads towards a quiz funnel just like that. So thousands of leads pouring in. On the very other end of the spectrum, we have what we call thought leadership diagnostics. And we build these for our clients. These are the Enneagrams or the Myers-Briggs or the Strength Finders level diagnostics that are, they're Harvard professors that are building these things. Okay. They're like true diagnostics. We build those as well. So that's the other extreme. And then somewhere in the middle, and none of these are the poor cousin of the other, it's just different use cases for different types of businesses. Is the centerpiece is this score-based diagnostic. And this is where a lot of people in the what we would call the expert industry, so coaches, consultants, advisors, service providers, where they have a methodology with a few pillars like I talked about earlier, and that score-based diagnostic can be built off their methodology. And I always like to think of this, it can be 40 questions long. Our diagnostic is 40 questions long. It can be, 15 to 20. Okay. And the whole idea here is that, from my business perspective, and it's a very, very custom decision. But if somebody doesn't have the attention span to go through my diagnostic, well, they sure as heck aren't going to cope with agentic AI solutions that we can build for their companies. Okay, so I almost use it as a filtration mechanism. Or we get the odd person who's like, this question's not relevant for me. Okay, brilliant. That means you're not our perfect client. So it's doing its job. It's filtering out those who aren't a good fit, allowing those who get to the end of our diagnostic and are qualified. This is why our sales team are closing at a really, really extraordinarily high rate, because we're only having conversations with people who are ready and willing and qualified and ready to buy. And Essentially, so we can use it as a filtration mechanism, but again, it's very niche specific. So we don't want to ask questions for questions' sake. We don't want to beef it out to make it like extraordinarily long if we don't have to. If we can get to the jugular within 15 questions, then we do that. But there's a balance here where we want the questions, as people are going through our diagnostic, we want them to take a beat. We don't want them to double click on some, opt-in that goes to our spam folder and they never think of us again. The whole idea with a diagnostic is that the level of intent from the lead's perspective is entirely different to, a Facebook lead form where they're barely typing in their name. Okay, the level of intent is different. These are people who are more qualified, probably more intelligent. They're probably more ready to work with you at a higher level. When we're asking these questions, we want to frame them and write them in a way that the lead is going, oh my goodness, like I never thought of it like that. This is a really good question. We almost want them to take pause and have to think about it, because again, people who actually go through that are a way, way higher quality lead. So it's all about quality, not just quantity.
I love it. I guess I have two questions, but before my last question, and then we wrap up, is there like software that is readily available for, say, health coaches right now to at least start flirting with the idea of these quizzes?
Absolutely, yeah. So we are fairly software agnostic, but there's one platform that the vast majority of coaches and consultants is like really, really suitable for them. It's called Score. I'll give you a link to put in the show notes for that as well. And that's where we build probably 90% of our clients' diagnostics. It just depends on the complexity. If it's an Enneagram or Myers-Briggs level diagnostic, we start to get into the realm of it having to be a custom coded build. But for most people who are building a score-based diagnostic, that platform is absolutely fantastic.
Okay, all right. And I this is such a loaded question, because you love marketing so much. Is this your favorite part of marketing, as far as like the you feel has the most lead generation potential, or is there something completely different that we can have another show about?
Yeah, well, there's another full show, and there's two pieces to this. So I am all in on diagnostic assessments. We've been doing them for years and years and years and years, to the extent that I, shut down our coaching programs and went all in on this done for you service. We build these for our clients, so I'm all in on that. But I am also very aware that a lot of people in this industry have been burned by the BS that has been put out there by those who shall remain nameless, that it's like push a button and you're going to be a millionaire by Friday. Whack up a funnel and that's all that it takes. It doesn't work like that. Okay. And my big thing, like the line I always say is there is no push a button and be a millionaire by Friday tactic in the online space. It's an entire ecosystem. But what the diagnostic does is allow us to put the right message and the right offer in front of the right person at the right time. But if we have the most stunning diagnostic and we don't know how to get eyeballs on that thing, we don't know how to run water through the pipes, we basically have a very fancy thing sitting on the internet. So the whole piece around traffic, what I call rich niche positioning. So there's so many people out there, and their content and their copy is literally screaming out to struggle bus people. So it's like, your really low end problems, real struggle bus things. And then they're wondering why nobody can afford their 10 or 20K thing, because all of their top of funnel copy is attracting poor me types, struggle types, etc. This rich niche positioning filter is what has turned our business into, we have Harvard professors are now our clients, New York Times bestselling authors are now our clients, working with some of the very, very famous names in the online space. They are our clients because of this filter. And it's all about, so what are the angles of, from messaging, positioning point of view, that are going to bring these high-end people into our ecosystem? And where are we causing ourselves a lot of pain, a lot of struggle, a lot of turmoil, thinking that nobody wants to have what we have to offer, when we're putting water through the pipes that could never buy from us in the first place.
Right. Wow. Makes a lot of sense. You've been fantastic. I thank you for jumping. Well, I'm jumping up a little early, but I keep forgetting you.
It's been a good conversation.
Well, 5 hours ahead, right? I think
yeah, I have no idea. I don't even know what day it is anymore.
Well, I know you're back coming to my neck of the woods, so you'll be on the same time frame next week. But yeah, listen, you've been fantastic. I just want to give you an opportunity to let us know how to keep up with all the great stuff you're doing, your website, social media, and those. Yeah, and I definitely would love to have you back on the show when I have a little bit more time in my world, because we could have definitely gone on for at least another hour. You were fantastic.
At least, absolutely. So yeah, I'd be delighted to come back another day. And best place to find me is probably on LinkedIn. So just search for Maeve Ferguson there. And if you want to go through an example of a score-based diagnostic, go through it with your entrepreneurial cap on as opposed to your consumer cap, to start to think about the infrastructure. What is she doing? Why is she asking those questions? Why is it positioned in this way? Go through that with your entrepreneurial cap on. And so that'll give you an example of that. And if you already know that a score-based diagnostic is something that you want to consider, just go to maeveferguson.com/application and my team will take really good care of you.
Appreciate that. Have a fantastic rest of the day, and thank you so much for jumping on.
Thank you so much, Omar. Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. If you did, jump over to iTunes and leave a rating and or review. It goes a long way in helping get this message out to our fellow health coaches and people in our industry. Also, if you can, jump over to my website, omarcumberbatch.com, where I give out a lot of freebies, including my 5-day sugar challenge for people who are having issues with sugar. And also for health coaches, I have the book, Hidden. It's the 6 not so obvious ways to get your clients unstuck. Have a great day.